Welcome to Increased Profitability and Growth with Open Book Management, presented by Bill Foch of Open Book Coaching. My name is Ryan Kauth, and I will be your host today. I direct the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center at UW Green Bay. The Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, at UW Green Bay is part of a statewide network of SBDCs working with small business owners to facilitate growth and improvement and to launch successful new companies. Through no-cost business consulting, low-cost entrepreneurial education, and strategic facilitation, SBDC experts serve as resources for small and emerging mid-sized companies. The Wisconsin SBDC is hosted by the University of Wisconsin Extension and is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. SBA. Our website is www.uwgb.edu/SBDC. Also joining me for tech support today and to take questions throughout the presentation, as well as at the end of the presentation, is Michael Wentworth from TMR Associates. In June, he presented the How to Improve Cold Calling Efficiency and Results webinar, which you can now find a recording of on YouTube as well as on our website. He will also be featured in a webinar in the first quarter of 2014. Our webinar today is the 6th of 7 in a series of monthly webinars we call our Secrets to Success series, designed to help small business owners increase their financial success. At the conclusion of this webinar, we will provide the upcoming webinar topics, and we encourage you to consider registering for those as well. I would like to thank our partner for the Secrets to Success webinar series, First Business. And I thank Mickey Noon and Tim Bino and Kelly and Corey and the entire First Business crew for their continued dedication to small business success. During the webinar, we invite you to ask questions at any time. Please use the menu at the right of your screen in the section indicated within the red circle. You may type your question there and press Enter to submit it. We will also take questions at the end for a few minutes. And now I am pleased to turn it over to our expert presenter this month, Bill Foch of Open Book Coaching. Bill?
Great, Ryan. Thank you very much. And Michael, thanks for your support. I guess we're flipping the screens here. That, I think, is now accomplished. I wanted to start by saying, just reinforcing what we're going to be up to in the presentation today. How many of you would be interested in boosting your short-term profitability, or your top-line sales growth, or helping to create a world-class management team by more effectively engaging your employees and having incentive plans that really work? That's what we're going to talk about. And there's only so much time that we've got in 35 minutes, so I'm going to be going through this fairly quickly. I'm going to also show you a couple of case examples, a service company and a manufacturing company. But I want to really reinforce this is really common sense stuff, and it's all about improving the financial results of your company and the lives of the employees that drive those results. And I seem to have some sort of technical difficulties, so I'll just do the screens like this. On my, our mission statement is to inspire great business performance and wealth creation by getting everybody involved in the business. That's what Open Book Coaching is all about. To that end, let me start by asking you a question. Here are two companies, company on the right, company on the left. They are identical in every way, except for on the company on the right, the employees are just the typical employees and typical customers. You know, they're doing a job. But the company on the right, the employees and the customers are really loyal, and the employees in particular are very much engaged in the business. Which company would you want to have money in? Which one do you think would generate more profitable results and higher growth? Frankly, for most folks, that's pretty self-evident. But the question ends up being why. I'm going to go through a whole variety of different examples in the next several slides of just companies who have adopted this approach. This is a manufacturing firm by the name of SRC. Some of you that are familiar with the great game of business may be familiar with Jack Stack's company, This Is It, and how the sales have grown, number of employees have grown, and how the stock price has grown. Very different company, Anthony Wilder Design. This is a home remodeling business, doing relatively well. And when in the business through 2000 and the middle 2000s, but when the transition from 2006, 2007, that's what they implemented, this open book management. You can see the financial results. And in 2009, what kind of a year do you think that was for most employers, especially in the home remodeling business? They were recognized as one of the top employers in the country. For Universal Engineering, engineering services in Florida, you can see this is the date on which they started implementing open book management and the effect it had both on profits and the valuation of their company. A office furniture retailer up in Dayton, where this is on the front page of the paper, focusing on both people and profits. In Wisconsin, MSA engineers, civil engineers, started with one office in Baraboo, about right there. They now have 15 offices across 4 states, and the management process they use to generate outstanding results is this notion of open book management. Relatively large company, Southwest Airlines. This is their scoreboard. Plain Smart Business was their logo. You can only guess it's typical Southwest. It's going to be a little bit on the comic side. This is a moving company located in Illinois. I think this is kind of interesting. In the dark blue is the monies retained by the company. In the lighter blue is either the 401k match, the discretionary contribution, or the bonus that the employees receive. And you see how both increased as they implemented open book management in 2004. And then a case example we're going to get into, this is a manufacturing firm. They happen to be located in Oklahoma City. This was their job profitability in the prior year. They set a relatively aggressive budget, and you can see the job profitability, how it grew. And because their operating expenses are pretty fixed, their profits actually grew by 5-fold. We'll be going through a case example of that. So there's a whole variety, and we'll share with you those slides. There's a whole variety of companies. I've had the privilege of the last 20 years of working with about 350 different companies that have seen impressive kinds of results in using these tools. I want to share with you, how do you go about this? The first thing you want to do is you want to get broad involvement in identifying the issues or opportunities facing the company, including input from the employees, managers, financial analysis, and customer input. I'll show you the particular customer interview tool that we use, and something that we're making as a function of kind of our contribution to this webinar series. The first individual that is listening in on a webinar that sends us a note and says they're interested in a complimentary, we call this the appraisal. That is the employee surveys, management surveys, financial analysis, and customer input. We'll be providing that complimentary to the first individual who gets in touch with us, kind of first come, first serve. Then once you have a real good understanding of what the issues are in the business, you want to distill those down to a key metric that really defines what winning or success means in the next 6 to 12 months. That'll make more sense, I think, when I show you a couple of case examples. Once you've figured out what winning really means, then develop the scoreboard to make this performance visible. Create a team incentive plan based on that performance metric that links the company financial performance and the employees' incentives. Again, we'll show you a couple examples. And then weekly staff meetings where it's an ongoing, what can we do to drive those results, and the learning that comes from that. So that's sort of the process. If you think about that process from a timeline standpoint, it's in effect the same thing. employee survey, senior management interviews, financial trend analysis, market data, establish that initial critical number, design the scoreboard, and then implement. The two case examples I'm going to walk you through, again, one a manufacturing firm and the other a service or engineering firm. Let me start with the manufacturing firm. The manufacturing firm, they make really large weldments. We went through that process of the employee surveys, management questionnaires, the financial trend analysis, the customer data, shared that live actually online using GoToMeeting. And then I asked each of the managers, there were 9, here's each of the managers' responses to a simple question. Once we went through all the homework, we asked each of them to jot down what did they see as the number 1 and number 2 issues facing the company in the next 6 to 12 months. These are their responses. Typically, when you do that, it breaks into 2 kinds of responses. You get various things that are what I would call the what's. Okay, efficiency, on-time shipments, meeting budgets, sustaining a backlog, staying within man hours, very tangible, measurable kinds of things. And then you get the hows or process things like lack of forward thinking, retaining and training employees, staying positive, meeting internal commitments. What we're wanting to do, what we want to do in determining what is the right performance metric is focus on those what's. So I gathered up all of the what kind of issues: shipments, job cost, job efficiency, shipment forecast, on-time delivery, manpower efficiency, and then we as a group discussed what would be a good objective measure that would take all of those issues into account and effectively define winning in this organization. The company decided on job margin dollars per month. So with each job that they ship, there's the revenue from the job minus the labor, minus the material. That's the job margin on that job. The number of jobs that we ship in a month is the job margin dollars per month. I asked each of the members of the management team, did that make sense to them, as you know, so we got everybody's input, and everybody seemed to like it. So we had that performance metric. The next thing we wanted to do was develop a scoreboard, so we got that visible. And each company has its own unique scoreboard. In this particular case, though, the scoreboard is each of the jobs. So as soon as sales wins a job, they post the job number, the estimated hours, estimated labor, material, the revenue, therefore the estimated job margin, and when it's supposed to invoice or ship. Then production comes along, and they're guys that forecast, meaning they come by and say on an ongoing basis, how much do we now think the job is really going to take in terms of hours? Therefore, what is the labor cost going to be? The material, the revenue rarely changes, therefore what the margin is, and when do they think it's really going to ship? Okay? And then finance comes along and gives us the actual results. That all gets culminated in what we call the job margin graph. So this is sort of the overview scoreboard. I just highlighted their job margin from last year. So this is cumulative by month, the job margin from last year. You can see they set a pretty aggressive budget. So this is the budget for the following year, and this now is their first pass at forecasting. We want people thinking cause and effect. So this is their first pass at forecasting. That, of course, is the production guys. We tied the incentive plan right to that. If they made budget, every employee would get 80 hours of pay. And, by the way, my compensation is tied to this. So if we get higher or lower than budget, then their bonus goes up and down, and so does my compensation. In the first forecast, in the first quarter, if they're right on budget, they get 8 hours of pay, but in fact, we're forecasting to be ahead of budget, so the forecast is at 20 hours of pay. These are literally the slides that we shared with all of the employees as we rolled this out. So everybody understood what we were focusing on and why, how we were tracking this on the scoreboard, how that was going to be updated every week, and what the bonus implications were. With that, we then asked everybody, we gave everybody 3x5 cards. We said, what we want you to do is jot down what's one thing you individually can do to help improve the job margin, that is the monthly job margin, and consequently improve your prospects and the prospects of the rest of the team for a higher bonus. These are all the various ideas. I categorize them into each of the various types of ideas there were. So some were labor efficiency, savings on material, speed, sales, which was really pricing, quality, reduction of rework, and so forth. Then a little exercise that we went through was looking at, here's the January forecast. In January, we were forecasting to get 23 jobs, a total of 800,000 in job margin. That was made up of an average job of 104,000 in revenue, 56 in material costs, 13 in labor, therefore a job margin of 34. We then talked through in sessions that were about 45 minutes each with about 15 employees per session, just each of these components. I'll give you quality as an example. On quality, that's the elimination of rework. I asked them, like, how much time do you spend on rework? And the typical employee was saying 2 hours, 4 hours, some people as much as 10. I said, well, let's just say 2. If we got rid of 2 hours of rework, that means we get rid of 5% of wasted time. What would happen to our labor costs? They said, well, it would go down. I said, yeah, that's right, by about 5%. So instead of our labor cost on an average job being $13,000, it's more like $12,500. Then I asked him, is that likely, is reduction of rework going to help us on material expense? I said, yeah. I mean, when we make some mistake on a job, then welding supplies, metals, and so forth, it's not just labor, it's definitely some material costs. I said, well, like how much in general? They said, oh, 2 to 4%. I said, let's be conservative, let's call it 2. Okay? Would there be any change in the job revenue? They said, well, no, we're going to get the same revenue, but if we weren't wasting time with rework, we've got a pretty decent backlog, especially given the customer outreach stuff that we've done. So with that being the case, we could probably get another job out. So all of a sudden, you start seeing, well, wait a minute, just quality changes the job margin from 34,000 to 36,000 per job, and with an extra job, we're talking about per month going from 800,000 to like $880,000. So quality or reduction of rework is like $80,000. We did that with each of these components, and we tried to avoid double counting. So speed was really a matter of labor efficiency and quality. So we avoided double counting on that. In any event, that was $360,000 a month. Times 12 months, that's $4 million. I said, guys, let's just take a look. If we just captured half of that this year, that would be $8 million of improved job margin. So in our bonus, we would go from $7.8 million to $9.8 million. And therefore, our bonus would go from 2 weeks to like 3 months. People were more than a little bit fired up about that. And this is wildly self-funded. The amount of incremental profit, well, I guess you guys already know the 5 times. That was the kind of the end of the story. Let me just share with you, though. So this was January 7th, that first forecast meeting and the discussion with the troops. I'm going to give you the same scoreboard, only now we're later in May. Now, in May, we had actuals through April. This is the May 8th scoreboard. And our first quarter bonus, the good news was we went way over our budget, and so everybody got a week and a half's pay. So that was reasonably exciting. And our now forecast for the next quarter, the second quarter, pushes us out to looking at just around 4 weeks of pay. So you can see this connected in it. And these charts, I'm just showing you points in time. These charts get updated every week. So we can understand cause and effect, what's really driving the results. The other thing that was true is the sales team came along and said, you know, we can really forecast beyond just the jobs we win. We can start forecasting jobs we're going to win, which allowed us to push the forecast out even further. So that's May. If you go to April, I'm sorry, you go to September, this is October 8th, We've got actual results now through September. And as you see here, here's our actual results in September, 7.47 million against a budget of 4.1 million. I'm sorry, of 5.8 million. So we are smoking versus budget. The bonus in the third quarter alone, cumulatively, it was about 8 weeks of pay. We've got a little bit more than almost 5 weeks of pay in the third quarter. And this was the forecast. It was pretty close to where things ended up through the year. So that gives you an idea of how this has been applied with a manufacturing firm. I continue to be working with folks at Boardman, and I would tell you the good news is they're now, it's a little off scale. They're more like this at the end of this year, which is clearly a happy circumstance for everybody. A different company, I'm going to go to a more of a service company, is my friends at Furborn Engineering. They're an engineering services company located on the West Coast. Same sort of deal. I think you get the thrust of the issues. Here were the entire staff, okay? What the issues were, we end up honing in on revenue per hour. That became the critical number. And the real key on this, service business, not surprisingly, most service business is very top-line driven. The customer revenue scoreboard, that's kind of the key. And you can see last year, one of the challenges they have, if you look, here is, I guess I got to move over a bit to be able to show this to you. Here we go. This is 2012, so this is last year. And they had a real wake-me-up last year because they were way too concentrated. Only 2 customers were driving most of their business. And you can see that they were averaging around 100,000 a month, and then they just kind of cratered in the last portion of last year. Here's what they're doing in December and January of this year. And yes, that's 153,000 and 133,000. So a dramatic improvement. And if you get into the specifics of this, it's now across a whole variety of different customers. They've got 9 or 10 core customers, so they're no longer as dependent on just 2 customers, which really hurt them the prior year. One of the ways in which they got that accomplished is the customer interview script that we've been using with a number of customers. This is literally the database where they started this. And you can see it was November of last year that they really got religion about this because, frankly, their sales were really falling off. This is the date of the survey, the individual who's doing the survey, who the client is, the contact name, what was the last project they did with them. And this is the meat of the survey itself. Would they enthusiastically refer us? The specifics of why. And frankly, on 9 calls, they got 7 referrals. Not to mention getting a much richer understanding and closer relationship with each of their customers. I reinforce that because, frankly, that ends up being a huge opportunity with a lot of companies, that getting closer to the companies, to your customers. So I'm looking at the time. I want to afford at least a little bit of time for questions. I'm going to return back to our overall script. And that is, although one of the things that dawns on me that I want to share with you, this is in the deck that we'll be sending out to you. This is that customer outreach script that I was referring to. So to give you the specifics of how that works, so you may be able to apply it in your particular company, or if you're the individual that gets in touch first, we'll be conducting this kind of with and for you. So that, in a nutshell, is 2 examples of this. I want to wrap up by saying the real power of this to drive results and engage folks really comes from the weekly forecasts. That's the way in which the whole organization gets to see exactly where we're at and getting a better handle on the underlying drivers of the business. As the numbers move up and down, we get to understand why that's the case. Is a function of something we're doing, market, customer effect, or a competitor move. Forecasting really reinforces strategic learning because we're thinking cause and effect. And then you can use this learning to really refine your strategic planning. So that in a nutshell is what drives the financial results that we've seen in a lot of companies. Let me open it up to questions.
All right, Bill. Well, we've got a couple of questions here. One of the first questions that came across was, how long does it take to have an impact?
Oh, that's a really good question and varies somewhat by company. Although in a way, you can see pretty tangibly in the Boardman results. I mean, here was last year. We started work at the end of 2011. Here's 2012. Some of that, I think to be fair, some of that was driven by the market getting a bit stronger. But I think it'd be fair to say that maybe even in a generic way, if you don't start seeing some tangible changes in behavior that result in improvements in the financials within a couple, 3 months, then chances are something's wrong.
Wow. Well, the next question I think which connects to that, which is what's my out-of-pocket for something like this?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, one is if you're looking for some sort of support to do this, you want a coach, and let's say for the moment you're looking for the best coaching organization, that would be us, modestly said, is in a typical small to medium-sized company, your out-of-pocket is going to be something on the order of $5,000 to $10,000. By the same token, if the people that are providing you that don't stand behind their work, i.e. guarantee your satisfaction, then I wouldn't work with them. We do that always, and we never charge people up front. And then part of what I would think would be the case is that another thing that I think is important is part of what we do, you saw it in our bonus plan, is that, I should go back to the first one, here we go, is we tie our compensation right to the company's results. So, which I think is a very smart thing to do. The only other thing I would mention is you can pursue this without any outside support. You can absolutely do that. The only thing that an outsider like, a coach like us provides is improving speed, lowering the risk of a mistake, and magnifying the results that you might achieve. But I wouldn't downplay the notion of people's ability to pursue this on their own.
Got it. Now, the other concern it came across in the question with the folks is, as the manager of a business or the owner of a business, won't my weaknesses be exposed in this process?
Absolutely. This is about transparency, but quite frankly, the strengths and weaknesses of the organization throughout the organization will become more visible. Which, by the way, if that's the case, celebrate. Because that's how you improve. It's making that visibility is wait a minute, we can do that better. And that's true with the owner, that's true with members of the management team, that's true with the employees. There's, someone once told me that sunshine is a great disinfectant. And I think that's probably right. The notion of the visibility that this will create in your organization is precisely how you can expect you're going to improve if you're an owner or a member of the management team or a rank and file employee. The other thing that's going to happen too is the pressure to improve is also going to go up because the team wants to improve. If you were on a soccer team and the goalie was letting goals in right and left, I mean, you'd do what you could to play a little better defense, but you'd also be looking to see that goalie steps up their game. And that's going to be the case in this. So, yes, it absolutely is going to expose weaknesses, but it's not just, don't think about it just as the owner's weakness. It's going to be, in effect, making visible both the strengths and the weaknesses. And let me just reiterate that. Which are those customers, for example, that are really more profitable for us? And why is that? And once we understand that, what can we do to generate more customers like that? That's a visibility on a strength. You could see the flip side of that just as easily. Which are the customers that we lose money on? Why is that the case? Should we do less work with those kinds of companies? So that notion of visibility, the only thing I think I heard implicit in that question is it's like, oh my goodness, it might get kind of scary. Yeah, don't worry about that. The visibility will help you.
Got it. I think we got time for one last question. I think this is an important one, which is how much of my time and my team's time am I going to have to take off production to pay attention to this?
Yeah, and the comment I would make is, in fact, this should be a time savings. And a lot of people miss that. There is some startup on this, but if you get the whole organization focused on what winning really means, it reduces a lot of the wasted time that gets spent in a variety of other meetings. That doesn't change the fact that if you just think about the data points of time consumption in the front end, there's probably 15, 20 minutes for every employee to complete that employee input survey. There's a similar 15, maybe 15 to 25 minutes to fill out the management questionnaire. There is going to be some time spent in going through and distilling down what are really the key issues that you face and so forth. So maybe there's a couple of hours of that needs to get done. But on an ongoing basis, the thing that I think most organizations find, I'll go to the job scoreboard, is this actually starts to supplant or replace a variety of the other management meetings or metrics they pursue.
Got it. Well, listen, I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan. Thanks very much, Bill.
My pleasure.
Bill, thank you so very much. Really excellent information and really valuable. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
My pleasure, Ryan.
Our next webinar will be in December, and Mary from Envision Financial Services will be presenting financial and regulatory hotspots for 2014. And then, as we move into the new year in 2014, we do have 3 webinars lined up for you already. The first one will be how to boost sales this quarter, and Jim Ball is going to return to present that one. And then Jill Simon in February will be presenting on how to own your calendar. That's especially great for all of us who have already broken our New Year's resolutions. And then our third one for 2014 in March, Michael will be presenting, and he's going to tell us how to find and engage new customers. And you can register for these webinars on our website. And with that, I'd like to thank Bill of Open Book Coaching, Tim Bino and Mickey Noon of First Business, and Michael Wentworth of TMR Associates. And thank you all for attending. Shortly, you will receive in your email inbox a recording link to this webinar, and we encourage you to share it. Enjoy the rest of your day today. Goodbye now.